Good evening. My name is Elizabeth Clark. I'm an associate director here at the International Center for Law and Religion Studies, and I'm delighted to welcome you to our 32nd annual International Law and Religion Symposium. We'll start tonight off with a prayer from Reverend Daesun Kim, who's the chairman of the United Religions Initiative of Korea and a Won Buddhist minister. Then after that, we'll hear welcomes from our university president, Reese, our law school dean, David H. Moore, and our center director, Scharffs. And at that point, I'll come back up and introduce our two keynote speakers. Thank you.
법신불 사은이시여, 오늘 BYU
We come here to this BYU Law and Religious Symposium. We're grateful to have the 32nd of this great symposium. We're very grateful for all the delegates from all the countries. We're so grateful all of those staff and the main directors to prepare this meeting. We pray for the flourish of the BYU, and we will hope that we'll be able to accomplish the chance that we improve the law and humanity and dignity of the humanity, and we pray for the happiness of all those individuals and their families. Our religions, our spirit will be able to develop based upon our the actions. In this turmoil circumstance in this life, we hope that we'll be able to improve our spirituality as we seek all of those initiatives that we have discussed, that has been discussed. And we hope that we'll have a chance to improve our spirituality regarding that subject, so that globally we'll be able to accomplish that. We pray for these things.
I'd like to welcome all of you to our beautiful Brigham Young University campus, and we are so grateful for that beautiful invocation on these proceedings, this wonderful symposium. We hope that you all find it a meaningful time. We sometimes at Brigham Young University say that the world is our campus, and this week, with over 100 delegates from 54 different nations, it feels very much like the world is our campus. And so we would just like to wish you a warm welcome to our campus. We hope you find this meaningful, enriching, and that this conference program provides the kind of inspiration that is necessary in a world that is so desperately in need of it. You're here on this campus at an incredibly special time. On this campus, we are celebrating our 150th year providing education to young people. And we are thrilled that you are here on this campus in our 150th year to celebrate. So thank you for being with us. It's an exciting time on campus. We hope you get the feels of the place as you walk around and spend some time with us. It is also the 25th anniversary of the International Center for Law and Religion Studies. And I just have to say that this is going to feel like a celebratory conference, and we hope that you all feel like it's a party on this campus this week. You'll find that we party in a little different ways than most campuses in the United States. I love your theme, this idea of how we find, seek out, and even establish paths to flourishing. The concept of flourishing is a desperately needed concept in today's divisive world. And I will just say that for us at Brigham Young University, we are institutionally committed to the ideas of flourishing. We have established some university research initiatives that are set up precisely to strengthen the human sense of flourishing. You see, we believe that in order to flourish, we need strong institutions like the family, institutions like religion and how it relates to human flourishing, regardless of what your faith tradition might be. Religion contributes to human flourishing and a healthy sense of human flourishing. We believe that those beautiful institutions of family and religion are so vitally supported by, in the United States, a constitution that provides, protects, and affords freedoms of practicing in those two strong institutions. And so the institution of our Constitution, the institution of family, the institution of religion, how they contribute to the overall sense of human flourishing. And we are committed to conducting research on this campus that fortifies and strengthens those key institutions that need our support, that need people who are willing to stand up and be different, have the courage to be different and advocate for those institutions. And so we are grateful that you all are here doing this important work that we are certain will contribute to that collective aim of strengthening our overall sense of human flourishing. And we're grateful to have friends and colleagues, neighbors who are close and who live very far away, who will come and have those dialogues with us on these important institutions of human flourishing. Lastly, as you start this conference, may I invite you, because as I look around this room and I see the demographics in this room, it is very clear to me that we also need to vitally inspire, encourage the rising generation as it relates to human flourishing. This is a generation of young people who are suffering from an absolute epidemic of loneliness. A generation of young people who are suffering from a complete loss of meaning and purpose in their lives. So as you talk about building paths to human flourishing, may I invite you to look for ways to involve the rising generation in those very conversations. That as you talk amongst yourselves and you have these dialogues about flourishing, that we not forget about the young people of our planet. That this rising generation need this more than anyone, and so that they be part of the dialogue. Welcome to Brigham Young University. We hope you have an inspiring and an enlightening time during your time here. Thank you.
Thank you, President Reese. It's my honor to welcome you specifically to BYU Law School. We are delighted to have you here. I'm personally delighted to have you here. Before becoming dean, I specialized in international law, human rights, international development, and foreign relations. Served a brief term on the UN Human Rights Committee and worked at the U.S. Agency for International Development. These days, I don't get to escape much into that space, so I'm really grateful to have you here and have the opportunity to be with what feels like my home, my family. I hope that you will feel part of the BYU Law family. BYU Law is a relatively young school. To cite another anniversary, we just graduated our 50th class this year. Recently, we were ranked in the top 25 of law schools in the United States. And the other law schools in that bracket were on average about 100 years older than BYU Law School. So in a very short time, BYU Law School has gone from being a regional school to a national school to a global law school. And this symposium represents part of that. Other features of our global nature, about 75% of our students speak at least one foreign language. That's maybe not uncommon in your countries, it is in the United States. We have a large number of students who have had international experience and come with a global perspective. In addition to our JD program, we have a Master of Law program for foreign attorneys. Those attorneys come and study U.S. and comparative law, but they also enrich our community by sharing perspectives from other legal systems, as will happen in this symposium. Currently, we have LLM students or Masters of Law students from Australia, Brazil, Canada, Israel, Jordan, the Philippines, and Tanzania, joining our global community. Our students work abroad through a global law seminar where they'll spend a semester abroad, whether it's in Mexico City or Seoul or Dubai, London, many places of the world where they're gaining global legal experience. We sponsor the J. Reuben Clark Law Society, which has chapters in over 40 countries and brings attorneys of faith together to engage in pro bono work to help those who are vulnerable and in need, to support principles of the rule of law and religious freedom. And finally, we are host to the International Center for Law and Religion Studies. They won't brag on themselves, but as dean, I will say they are the world's leading academic institute on freedom of religion or belief. And we're so grateful to include you in the network of the center. I could say more about our global reach, our national standing, but our highest priority here at BYU Law School is on the individual, on our individual students. You'll notice in the hallway some beautiful original artwork depicting the legal roles of Jesus Christ: healer, mediator, counselor, advocate, peacegiver, lawyer, judge. Our mission statement says that we seek to be and develop people of integrity who combine faith and intellect in lifelong service to God and neighbor. We are affiliated with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and have an expressly Christian mission. Not all our students are Christian. We have Muslim, Jewish students, for example. But for students of any faith, our goal is to produce top-notch lawyers who are also committed in their religious convictions and can use those convictions to guide their legal professions and make a difference for good in the world. And so we have an alumni base now of over 7,000 students who are combining faith and intellect to make a difference for good in this world. I want to recognize also your stature and distinction. We are really honored to have you here. You come from all over the world, as was mentioned. Not many people would imagine Provo, Utah as the site of a gathering like you would see at the United Nations. We'll actually be translating into far more languages than the 6 working languages of the United Nations here. And we're delighted to bring together this global community and hope you will form connections with each other and learn from each other through this conference. I'll just close by saying the impact that BYU Law is having globally, nationally, individually is in part or is made possible by freedom of religion or belief. Because of that freedom, we were able to found this law school, a religiously motivated law school. Because of that freedom, we're able to continue to operate this law school and graduate individuals who can bless the world. Because of that freedom, our students, our staff, faculty can come to study as whole people, integrating again their faith and intellect. And because of that freedom, we're able to welcome all of you to have the rich dialogue that we will experience at this conference. And so, recognizing the importance of that freedom, and indeed standing as a testament to the flourishing that freedom can produce, I want to welcome you to the 32nd Annual Symposium of the International Center for Law and Religion Studies and to BYU Law School. Thank you.
Welcome. I'd like to thank Elizabeth Clark, Chair of the Symposium Organizing Committee, C. Shane Reese, BYU's 14th President, a statistician with a heart of gold who has overseen the university's sesquicentennial this year, David H. Moore, Dean of the Law School and former Associate Director of this center, and everyone who has made this event possible, our center team, our IAC, the interpreters, and our students, among others. And especially thanks to everyone who is here attending and contributing to this symposium, many of whom have come from a great distance to be with us. We are grateful. The mission of the International Center for Law and Religion Studies is to help secure the blessings of freedom of religion and belief for all people in all places. We do this by focusing on education and learning, engaging in scholarly work, developing networks and relationships, and working on law reform. We consider this annual symposium to be our flagship event each year. This is the 32nd Annual International Law and Religion Symposium. This year, we also commemorate the 25th anniversary of the founding of the International Center for Law and Religion Studies. We gather at a time when our community is in a state of heightened awareness of the consequences of the hatred and enmity that is too prevalent in our civic life. The politically motivated assassination of Charlie Kirk at Utah Valley University occurred just 4 miles down the road from this university just 2 weeks ago. In the last week, the attack on a Latter-day Saint Sunday service in Grand Blanc, Michigan, was motivated by religious animus. The father of Andrea Howard, one of our law school librarians, was among those killed. A reminder of how close these tragedies can come to home. We have been touched, moved, and humbled by the number of outpourings of love and support. It was amazing that the nurses on strike just down the street from the chapel where the attack took place immediately left their picket lines and rushed to the aid of those who were injured. Equally amazing was the GoFundMe money raised by Latter-day Saint church members for the widow and child of the gunman. Martin Luther King famously said, "Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that." We are gathered here to help prove the proposition that love is stronger than hate and that light is stronger than darkness. As we begin, I'd like to make 3 brief observations about the conference theme. First, religious freedom is for all people in all places. Religious freedom gives us the opportunity to stand up for principle and to stand up for and with each other when anyone's religious freedom is under threat or even assault. This willingness to show up for each other is one of the hallmarks of peacemakers. Religious freedom is not protected in one way from one place. It is protected in many ways and from many places. As Latter-day Saints, we have felt this with the many outpourings of support in response to the violent attack on the meeting house in Michigan. and we hope that those who suffered the attack on the synagogue in Manchester have felt it as well. Second, religious freedom invites us to live the best version of our own faith. For Latter-day Saints, this means striving to live the restored gospel of Jesus Christ more fully, more faithfully, more joyfully, more purposefully, more peacefully, and more conspicuously. On Tuesday, day after tomorrow, we will pause to watch the funeral of President Russell M. Nelson, the president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, who just passed away at the age of 101. In General Conference 2 years ago, in an address entitled Peacemakers Needed, President Nelson distinguished between conflict, which is a natural feature of life, and contention, which is a choice we make about how to respond to conflict. In that address, President Nelson said, "Contention drives away the spirit every time. Contention reinforces the false notion that confrontation is the way to resolve differences, but it never is. Contention is a choice. Peacemaking is a choice. You have your agency to choose contention or reconciliation. I urge you to choose to be a peacemaker now and always." President Nelson went on to say, "Brothers and sisters, we can literally change the world, one person and one interaction at a time. How? By modeling how to manage honest differences of opinion with mutual respect and dignified dialogue." One of the recurring themes of President Nelson's messages about becoming peacemakers is that the transforming power of God's love will change us and empower us to become peacemakers. I think it is interesting that the first change that must take place if we are to become peacemakers is change within ourselves. We must allow ourselves to be transformed by God's love. When we remember our principal identity, beyond differences of nationality, race, religion, or anything else, is that we are children of God, this provides an important key to our overcoming contention and becoming peacemakers. Third and finally, we're talking about institutions for protecting religious freedom. What do you think is the most important institution for protecting religious freedom? As for me, I agree with Eleanor Roosevelt. She was the chair of the committee that drafted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Speaking at the United Nations in 1958, a decade after the adoption of the UDHR, she said this: "Where, after all, do human rights begin? In small places, close to home, so close and so small that they cannot be seen on any map of the world. Yet, they are the world of the individual person, the neighborhood he lives in, the school or college he attends, the factory, farm, or office where he works. Such are the places where every man, woman, and child seeks equal justice, equal opportunity, equal dignity, without discrimination. Unless these rights have meaning there, they have little meaning anywhere. Without concerted citizen action to uphold them close to home, we shall look in vain for progress in the larger world." Perhaps I like this quote because Provo, Utah, too, is a small place. And perhaps from this place as well, the defense and protection of religious freedom for all people in all places can begin. Although I hope we are not so small a place that we cannot be seen on any map of the world. Surely after your visit, if it was ever so small a place, it will no longer be. Welcome.
Thank you each. Appreciate those warm welcomes. We're really delighted to have you here, as you can tell. Well, tonight is a treat. We get to hear from two very thoughtful, engaged people who have devoted their careers to law and religion, religious freedom. Thank you. And you can read their full bios online with the QR code in your program, and you should, because they're very impressive. You can read how Professor Andrea Penn has written over 60 books and articles and is an expert and has been served at Notre Dame and Emory, and specializes particularly in constitutional law, Arab constitutionalism, Middle East, North Africa. You can read about Baroness Berridge of the Vale of Catmos, who's been serving in the House of Lords, and even before that was anxiously doing good, as it shows up in a Latter-day Saint scripture. She has been active in the House of Lords as well. She helped create the all-party parliamentary group for freedom of religion or belief. She's helped create an international group for parliamentarians interested in freedom of religion or belief. She's had a key voice in so many of the international actions and activities in this field. And I could go on and on about both of them. But what moves me most is the way they live what they believe. Although we do not all believe the same thing about everything, I am in awe of both of them, at their gentleness, at their down-to-earthness, at their concern for the people around them, for people who've accomplished so much, to be so kind to those around them. To me, it's a reflection of what they believe and who they are. So tonight, we're really privileged to hear from our first two keynote speakers. We'll have a third tomorrow. And as you can see from the program, we focus on having a mix of government leaders and religious leaders and scholars, trying to bring together stakeholders who can advance religious freedom. Tonight, we have an academic. Tonight, we have someone who's been heavily involved in the political process. Tomorrow, we'll have a religious leader. And we look forward to hearing from all of you as well. But tonight, we'll start with Baroness Berridge, and then hear from Professor Penn. Thank you.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you, Elizabeth, for such a generous introduction. President, Dean, and Director of the International Centre for Law and Religious Studies, judges, lawyers, faith leaders, academics, lords, ladies and gentlemen from all over the world. It is an honour to be with you this evening, to be in this beautiful mountainous area of Utah. How many places in the world can you cross the road? You look one way, there's a mountain. You look the other way, there is a mountain. But it has been a long time coming. I first met the emeritus professor that many of you will know, Cole Durham, in 2014. And I think I perhaps have received an invitation most years. But my lack of fondness of flying, a pandemic, and the fact that, as I will outline, my international work on FORB has come home, has meant that it's only today that I have the privilege of being here. As I prepared, though, for coming, I was aware of I think someone said today, the tender moment that it was for the Church of Jesus Christ of the Latter-day Saints as I was preparing to come. We all saw the tragedy and the amazing response to care for the family of the assailant humbled us, and to also see the death of your president. And because I feel that for a long time I've been part of the team and in partnership with you, I wanted to particularly offer my condolences this evening. But I did want to just slightly build on what Brett Scharffs said, because I overheard a conversation in the lift, elevator for those in the United States. And there was a discussion about, from delegates, what are you talking about, freedom of religion or belief? Now, in Europe, we often use that freedom of religion or belief. In the US, as you can see from your booklets, it's religious freedom. But we're here talking about freedom of thought and conscience and religion. Now, to quote the historian, the University of Leicester historian John Coffey, and he said this about religious freedom: it might be enshrined in a constitution, in America, not the UK, but it is pre-political. That's why the fourth president of the United States, James Madison, could say it is inalienable. It is based on your humanity. Your conscience compels you to believe. It is what you believe. It is different from choice. You can't transfer it to the state, and the state can't grant it to you. It exists inside every single one of us. And that is why the program says about protections, not grants or issues of something. It's why it's a UN declaration of things that already exist. And it's not new. Back in the 3rd century, one of the early church fathers, Tertullian of Carthage, said, each person worships according to his own convictions. Oliver Cromwell, in that gap in English history where we didn't have a king or queen, said in 1654, and this will be reminiscent for many of the Americans in the room, liberty of the conscience is a natural right. We had moved at that point in our history from toleration, we will tolerate you to have something different to that, to an expression that this is a natural right. And you only have to look into the founding documents of some of the eastern states of America to see the liberty of conscience phrase there. It was inspirational. But let's pause for a moment and remember, though, most of us here watched your film yesterday called Legacy. The people that left Holland and left England to found the United States of America were minority persecuted Christian communities. They were Baptists, they were brown separatists, and some were Unitarian. But by the time we're watching that history of a nation that is founded on religious persecution, what are those people doing? Those Protestants are persecuting the Mormons. I don't think we can ever take it for granted that we can't go back, that the persecuted can become the persecutor. But this foundation is also found, I recognize I've got a global audience here, in the East. There was tolerance amongst many of the early empires, the Mauryan Empire, Cyrus of the Archimedean Empire, and latterly in the Ottoman Empire. But I think I can do no better than actually to quote President Oakes, who said a few years ago that religious freedom is in our DNA. And then he said, we should walk shoulder to shoulder along the path of religious freedom for all, while still exercising that freedom to pursue our own particular beliefs. So I think not now so much of team with you or partnership with you, but walking shoulder to shoulder with you. This isn't an isolated concept or even a human right. This is lived reality when people are deprived of this freedom. Only 2 weeks ago, I was with one of my best friends who is British, but she has Eritrean heritage. And she had spent with her 3 children the school summer holidays back in Eritrea visiting family. Precious time. She had not been for years. But she was upset. She was telling me that of the 6 weeks she had, she wasted a week. I said, how did you waste a week in Eritrea? She wasted a week going back and forth from her family home to the prison. Her brother, about 7 or 8 months ago, had the audacity as a Protestant Christian in Eritrea to meet with 1 or 2 people in the street. He is in prison, we don't know for how long. She wasted a week trying to visit him in prison. This is a lived reality, not just dry legal concept. But there has been a walking shoulder to shoulder with the Church of Jesus Christ of the Latter-day Saints and BYU. Back in that meeting in 2014 with Cole Durham in Oxford, BYU had assisted us to bring about half a dozen parliamentarians from different parts of the world together. That is now a network of about 400 parliamentarians who are trying to work together and trying to help each other in their own context to eliminate religious freedom. And in fact, I was Googling, because I don't suffer from founder syndrome, so I'm not involved anymore. Just really pleased it is still thriving. They are having their latest academy in Ghana, actually on the 8th of October, so in a couple of days' time. And the UN Special Rapporteur for International Freedom of Religion or Belief, Dr. Naz Garnier from Oxford University, is due to go out and join them. So that was a delight. The teamwork is still there. Yes, and the Latter-day Saints were one of the founding members of the UK Parliamentary Group. That is a cross-party group of parliamentarians working on international freedom of religion or belief, and I believe it's one of the largest cross-party groups in the UK Parliament. And then I think we can, the UK, maybe still pat ourselves on the head, because with a change of government, and we lost the legislation that would have enshrined in law the requirement to have a special envoy. The wisdom of the new government, and my colleague Lord Rook is here, sorry I can't see you because the lights, Russ, they have continued that, and David Smith MP is the Freedom of Religion or Belief envoy, and we still prioritise 10 different countries for work on FORB violations. So BYU and LDS, you have walked shoulder to shoulder with us, but I have gone home. But the LDS are still walking shoulder by shoulder with me. Why would I go home? There are these violations which are much more serious than what is happening in the United Kingdom. But I am really grateful for the LDS for the 2 years of work they have been doing with us at Oxford University on what is happening in the United Kingdom. Sadly, there are stories of people who are oppressed and maybe even persecuted if they convert from their particular faith. There is now a commitment of major UK political parties to leave the European Convention on Human Rights, and it's my own party is one of them, and then to repeal the Human Rights Act. What that would mean in the United Kingdom is there would be nothing on the statute book in law, because we have an unwritten constitution to protect freedom of religion or belief in the UK. That could be quite a perilous moment for us. And battles may come over what that looks like in our law, and I think we better be ready. And I'd rather be ready and there not be a battle than the reverse. So what LDS has been enabling us to do is to produce, we're about to launch schools resources in English schools to help teachers teach in both the RE curriculum and the citizenship curriculum FORB in the UK. And we are developing this is the moment where it gets beyond me, artificial intelligence, okay? We apparently have developed an artificial intelligence tool that will enable you in live time with open source information to be able to track freedom of religion or belief violations. This is apparently a good thing. Beyond me, though. So I am just really thankful to BYU for walking shoulder to shoulder. And I look at all of you here, and I looked at all of the programme, and I was so pleased to see that most people were speaking about their national context. which is what we in the UK, I believe, now need to pay some attention to. But what I would say is you can't do this alone. You do need to walk shoulder to shoulder with people, and that is how we will see the flourishing that we all so want to see. And I am so very grateful for the long relationship, partnership, and walking shoulder to shoulder with me and others that BYU and LDS have done. I wish you all the very best and look forward to meeting many more of you. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm very thankful to Elizabeth for her kind word. Would you mind if we call my mom together and you repeat to her what you said to me? Because that would be, she has always complained I never got into real estate attorneyship, so rewarding. I am extremely honored to be with you and in front of you today and to intervene right after such a distinguished speaker. Let me also add that I can empathize with all the mourning and anxieties that have lately shaken this community from its roots. Your hospitality has been amazing as usual, but I know that because of the level of civility and joy that transpires from this community, some have joked that this is a square mile surrounded by reality. This is what I was told before coming the first time. But nothing is further from truth. This square mile is not spared from what happens outside, but this square mile is badly needed to make the world a better place. So what I'm bound to offer is what I think is down-to-earth, realistic reflection on the level of religious freedom we can hope for and strive to achieve in several parts of the world. I'm focusing on the Middle East and North Africa, what I will call MENA region, and this is within my field of expertise, but one could extend my reflections also to other parts of the world, I believe. I will use Syria as the latest case on point to start my analysis. The ending will be rather sober, so nothing American, okay? But let's start with Syria. Several efforts have been made to secure the rule of law and the protection of religious freedom and human rights in the MENA region. The 21st century is marked by an impressively long series of constitutional documents that have pursued these goals with precarious or even disappointing results. The geographic span of countries that have undergone such processes, often with international help, extends from Morocco to Afghanistan. In some cases, constitutional changes have resulted in amendments that left the pre-existing elites in charge. On other occasions, new constitutions have marked dramatic changes in regime. Despite the differences, most of these processes did not deliver on the promises. Where constitutional changes aim to do more than simply stabilize pre-existing regimes, they fail to bring about the mixture of rule of law, rights, peace, and especially religious freedom that many were hoping for. This is particularly true in places like Afghanistan and Iraq, where religious and ethnic affiliations experienced a dramatic comeback on the political plane, causing turmoil and even internecine wars. Although the constitutional texts enacted roughly 20 years ago were supposed to diffuse tensions and assuage all religious and ethnic factions. In fact, these documents provided freedom for all and a neutral public sphere where individuals and groups would exchange opinions and deliberate outside of the groupthink that governed their lives. The new Western-backed regimes were supposed to give life to political and legal institutions that would be representative of the entire national population. Religious freedom, political freedom, equal rights, and the rule of law were therefore the ingredients of these new constitutional mixtures that would treat people as individuals rather than as members of a specific ethnic or religious group. Explanation for these constitutional failures have pointed the finger towards several factors, such as the lack of legitimation, the unwise unfolding of military interventions, poorly executed regime changes, the agenda of regional players, an undeveloped political climate, or the enduring influence of religious laws on state laws. These factors have undeniably played a role and now also seem to be affecting the troubled Syrian constitutional transition. However, recent developments in Syria require further explanations. The uncertainty surrounding the new regime and the constitution-making process requires further analysis. The toppling of al-Assad regime seems to have been mostly a domestic development. Many were hoping for regime change. Regional players such as Iran now seem to be occupied with other tasks. Then, despite its extremist pedigree, the new Syrian leadership seems to have embraced an inclusive approach to the constitution-making process. Recent bloodshed in several areas of western and southern Syria, where government forces and militia skirmished with the Druze and Alawi minorities to which the Assad family belonged, suggests that important parts of Syrian society may not feel at ease with the new regime. In the eyes of such minorities, in late 2024, a brutal, oppressive, undemocratic regime did not finally yield to democratic forces. Rather, it yielded to a sectarian regime that is seeking retribution and the establishment of new oppressive rule. They treat the post-Assad leadership as an overwhelmingly Sunni regime that is marshalling a new course that will discriminate against and perhaps even persecute them. The democratic, egalitarian, non-sectarian dialectic that people expected would replace the previous iron fist rule, and that is also reflected in the draft of the Syrian Constitutional Declaration, does not seem to have gained purchase among religious and ethnic minorities, some of whom have sought help from outside the country. Of course, the constitutional clauses of the Syrian Declaration resemble many other constitutional documents in the region. They are often so ambiguous that they may not be able to assuage these heartened minorities. But an even more fundamental question seems to linger over the entire MENA region, or at least large swaths of it. Is it feasible to replace sectarian regimes with religious freedom and rule of law-based regimes centered on individuals? Will this lead to domestic peace and stability in the region, or will it backfire? This is the big question mark that's been lingering on us for decades now. And let's now take a step back. I'm talking from a Western perspective. So let's say I'm talking about religious freedom seen from the West for a while. So the United States model of religious freedom has been extremely influential around the world. Although many world constitutions and international treaties do not subscribe to the US Constitution's strong First Amendment clauses, they hardly ignore the United States constitutional, political, and diplomatic emphasis on the importance of this right. What is in US books and national rhetoric is also found in real life. When I attend the religious rites of my church in the United States, I'm always impressed by the outward-looking approach of any local parish I visit. Liturgical books do not just help me and anyone else attend and participate in the Mass. They also take pains to explain the gestures of the assembly and of the priest, the significance of taking communion, etc., for those visiting the building or observing the Mass out of curiosity. A leaflet is often also available for those who enter a Catholic church for the first time. It welcomes every visitor, illustrates the meaning of a Mass, encourages attendees to actively engage in it, and explains why taking communion is reserved to church members. It ends with an encouragement to interested individuals to contact the priest or other local figures. In a nutshell, US society, or at least US Catholics, take serious steps to ensure that everyone can truly pursue a religious quest and eventually convert. Religious freedom is considered as the expression of an individual choice which everyone may make freely, and I subscribe to this view. In countries like mine, however, where the majority of the population share the same faith or just repudiated it alongside any other religious affiliation, there's little that resembles this approach. Leaflets still help Catholics follow the Mass, but in most cases, such leaflets do not contain the rites in their entirety, just recite the Bible readings and the assembly responses. The approach suggests that in the European environment, religious conversion or even curiosity is not as common. There are, of course, exceptions and even renewed interest in religion, but the pattern emphasizes religious belonging over personal choices. Still, the importance of belonging to a religious community is not unknown in the United States. When I was visiting Big Apple, a good friend of mine invited me to his church, the St. Barton Armenian Cathedral of New York City, for Sunday Mass. Many may have guessed who my friend is, our common friend is, so I could comply with my religious obligation of attending rites and experience the Armenian liturgy. However, he warned me that the liturgy is held in Old Armenian. It lasts a couple of hours, and the attendees stand for the entire duration of the rites. These tips were helpful. I decided I would just take a peek at this beautiful church. I did not want to give my adolescent son additional excuses to skip Mass. Churches and religious groups that have a specific liturgical language and maintain their rites without aligning it with the broader society seems to be particularly preoccupied with the preservation of their culture, mindset, and legacy. They may very much welcome conversions, but they seem to be aware that there are significantly high thresholds for others to overcome to understand the faith's standards and later embrace them. The preservation and continuity of religious tradition across generations is particularly valued in the MENA region. One of the most eloquent constitutional articulations of this value is the 1926 Lebanese Constitution. It is still in force and was among the earliest constitutions ever drafted after the collapse of the Ottoman Empire and the beginning of the decolonization process. With its vibrant social life and its extreme religious diversity, Lebanon has always cherished religious freedom. But its constitution seems to do much more than consider religious freedom important. It reflects a belief that protection and preservation of Lebanon religious communities are necessary for the survival of the country as a whole. Its Article 10 grants free education, I'm quoting, as long as it does not disturb the public order, does not violate the morals, and does not touch the dignity, breadth, of any religion or creed. End of quotation. Education is a critical component of a survival religious community, and Article 10 of the Lebanese Constitution has been a constant reminder that education should not question the social, political, and cultural role of religions. There's even a joke about the importance of education for religions in Lebanon. A friend meets his Orthodox priest on a sidewalk in Beirut and says, "What are you going to do today?" "I'm going to open 2 new schools. 2 new schools. Well, after I open a new Orthodox one, Jesuits will want to open a new one for them too. In other words, for political and other purposes, Article 10 seems to prioritize religious stability over religious mobility. The survival of a religious community is particularly important for minorities such as the Druze, who do not accept conversions and therefore in freedom to convert see only the risk that their community will shrink, with no chance that outsiders may join the group. The need to preserve religious communities for political and institutional purposes radiates beyond the field of education. Ethnic and religious threads are woven into the very fabric of the national, political, and constitutional tapestry. Seats and public posts are allotted according to the religious affiliation of MPs and public employees. The balance of powers reflects the power dynamics among religious groups, and political negotiations tend to take place along religious lines. Countries like Lebanon operate as what scholars call consociational democracies. Political and legal institutions respond primarily to the groups that make up society rather than to individuals. Through the ethnic and religious apportionment of seats, the institutions themselves are supposed to hear, respect, and convey the concerns and priorities of each religious or ethnic faction. Institutions represent the people because they reflect each religious affiliation through the apportionment of seats, not because they are non-partisan actors that are equally respectful of any distant from all religious groups. For minorities, the neutralization of religion in the political sphere and its replacement with a simple majority rule will look like losing any political leverage, giving all public powers to the largest religious group, which would certainly gain most of the seats. Now back to the Middle East, and let's look back at what I said before. The logic is traceable throughout the MENA region, but is especially visible in the Middle East, where countries are often much more ethnically and religiously diverse than in North Africa. When an international coalition eliminated Saddam Hussein's elite and directed the transition to democratic rule, several Sunnis understood that the majoritarian Shia faction would take most of the seats in the Iraqi parliament and sideline them. As a result, many Sunnis opposed the new course, and a portion of them sympathized with Islamic State, which claimed to defend Sunnis. Dynamics of this kind often propagate across borders, as disgruntled minorities find support from co-religionists in other countries, generating a domino effect that spins out of control. Think of the political triangulation between Shia Syria, Iran, and Yemeni Houthis before the collapse of the Assad regime, or the Israeli intervention in the Syrian region inhabited by the Druze minority. Religious ties may connect people who live thousands of miles away, such as when Arab Mujahideen solidarized and fought with Muslim Bosnians against Orthodox Serbians during the Yugoslavian wars in the 1990s. Seen from the vantage point of the individual-oriented religious freedom described above before, many features of constitutional systems look disappointing. In these scenarios, religious freedom is never an individual business. Political legal systems make religious affiliation and conversion a social and even political issue, with a series of ramifications that can gravely affect the free choice of each individual in matters touching on faith. One can also imagine the level of social pressure individuals perceive from extended family and acquaintances if they consider leaving their own denomination for another. If they change the religion, they alter the balance of powers among religious groups. Even vindication of religious rights in court can be extremely problematic. Comparative constitutional law tends to view, I'm a comparative constitutional lawyer, so it's my business, but we tend to view rights issues as a matter for tribunals. In deeply divided societies, where individuals find a place according to their religious or ethnic affiliation, claiming an individual right can pit plaintiffs against their group. This alienates them from the support and help of their group, leaving them alone and outside the social and political structures that govern the country. It is no surprise that controversies are often solved through negotiations within or among groups rather than in judicial settings, where individual claims are contrasted and interests unbalanced by an impartial and independent judge. Overcoming this sectarian logic and replacing it with a constitutional system that makes religious freedom a matter of individual choice without legal or political significance is extremely difficult. In countries such as Afghanistan or Iraq, the commendable constitutional emphasis on religious freedom translated into capacious religious freedom clauses and the prohibition of sectarian parties. But these clauses, it seems to me, were too optimistic. Their political systems have never abandoned the religion and ethnicity-centered political narratives, to the extent that for the sake of domestic peace and stability, Iraq is still largely run through a de facto system of representation that reflects the nation's ethnic and religious makeup. This may sound depressing to those who champion individual-oriented democracy, but such a system provides peace to the extent that it placates local minorities' fears that state policies merely reflect the will and priorities of a Shia majority. In Afghanistan, the clash between the Taliban and democratic institutions concealed a struggle between pro-democracy and pro-West tribes that embraced the 2004 constitution and groups that felt disenfranchised and soon endorsed the Taliban, facilitating a successful comeback. The Syrian scenario does not appear too different from what happened elsewhere in the region. The Assad regime backed the Alawi and sidelined the Sunni. Now, the new regime said it's willing to implement a democratic rule, but minorities think that in a predominantly Sunni country, democracy will merely lend a veneer of respectability to Sunni-dominated and discriminatory legal and political environments. I'm coming to the conclusion. And as you can imagine, it's fairly depressing, if you wish. But we can look at things from another perspective. The price of peace. Constitutional systems are known to the West. For example, a solution of this kind surfaced in modern Belgium. In the late 20th century, constitutional agreements brokered peace in Bosnia and Northern Ireland, as they gave each of the prevailing religious communities an official status within national institutions and endowed them with veto powers on a series of critical issues. Bosnian peace is still very fragile. Northern Ireland seems to be more stable, although its flaws are also apparent. Following the 1998 Belfast Agreement, political players have too often resolved to veto each other's initiatives, stalling local political life. Veto inflation and immobilism are not just occasional bumps, but likely consequences of constitutional regimes that have been in full display for several decades now. Lebanon itself is notoriously plagued with inefficiency and lack of initiative. However, the price of replacing the conventional constitutional system that was supposed to be temporary in Lebanon with a majority-based democratic rule may jeopardize the whole of Lebanese society. Constitutional systems may start as a temporary settlement, but they tend to solidify. Since there seems to be a trade-off between religious freedom and peace that is rooted in the tension between freedom and belonging, it will be better to acknowledge it. So the big question lingering in all of us is why they ask me to give a keynote speech since they know my ideas about this. I found that BYU and its center are hubs for reflection and to go beyond simplistic solutions, to look at the complexity of life and to be humble. So I thought this would be perfect, even though rather repressing kickoff to start the reflection. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much to both of you. We'll try not to be too depressed. And towards that end, we have a reception downstairs. We invite you to join us. We'll be in the lobby. It will also be into the library, which goes that way from the lobby. So if you wouldn't mind joining me one more time to thank our keynote speakers, please.